I'm sending you the video of Otter getting arrested.
Again.
What are you laughing at, dude?
When I posted the video, I heard myself say again like 3 times.
Oh, gotcha.
What's going on there, D-Dog?
What are we on today? Is it article? No, it's not Article 5, is it? It is Article 5.
Yeah, Article 5.
That's one of my favorites.
No. Never would have guessed. What's going on there, Mud? You're finally here. Let's go, Brandon. $4.95.
Jim Skelton is here. Hello, Jim. And Michelle Brazil. I think looks like Brazil.
Now, how do you say that, Michelle? And if you're able to phonetically say it. Hello, Sue. Well, I don't know what your first name is, but I will call you Flacky. Hello, Flacky.
Flacky, I am having a great day. Thanks for asking.
And me as well.
It's a sunny day. I've got my workout in. I got my swim in. Did a bunch of grassroots stuff. Got some work done. Spent a couple hours on the phone last night with a really, really classy young lady. She's one of us.
How'd you meet her?
Going to grassroots. Yeah, you start seeing people at the different events, and sooner or later you get to know them. We ended up talking for a long time.
Very nice. D-Dog.
That's got to be a good job, Jim, if you're able to watch us while you're working. That's cool. I work for myself, so I can kind of do what I want. Yeah, Ron, I think you were going to really enjoy talking with these candidates that I've got lined up for us.
Nice.
It's a couple of really cool. It's a couple
I'm
of really
hoping
good
that
guys.
we can. Yeah, I don't mean to be difficult about the timing.
Your schedule's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Must be nice, Sue.
Are you kidding me? Wow. For what?
You want to play for the stream?
Wow.
I don't know if I can. I don't have it's because you sent it to my phone. Did you always you think I don't think you remember that.
No, I do remember.
It doesn't go to it doesn't go to my computer. It goes to my phone.
Do you know how many steps it takes for me to have to copy a video that I came to me via text and to get it over to your email? Mm-hmm. I've got to download it, save it, open up an email, switch back over to my Mac side. It's just Way too
Oh,
much work.
trust me. I'm well aware. I'm well aware. You don't think I don't think you forget that I also have a Mac.
Well,
So I'm very well aware of the steps, and then
so
it's the reverse process when I'm trying to send stuff out, because people want me to send it to their phone from my computer, and I can't. So I have to
what you
send it to I have to send it to Telegram, and then from Telegram, then save it on my phone, and then send it out.
why don't you have text message on your because you don't have an iPhone, do you? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I have an iPhone
So why don't you have your text go to your Mac?
because I don't use my Mac.
Okay.
I don't use my I use my Mac. My MacBook does not have enough power for what I do. I have a desktop computer with 4 screens, and
I've
it's
got
got all kinds of power to it. So I need my my MacBook, as much as I love the interface, is a step down.
the well, you've seen my Mac. I bought it last year. It's the best you can get. But even still, I've got the virtual machine on the Windows side, and I'm right here. I'm on Windows right now on the other side when I do these videos because the channels we use, StreamYard, is not Mac friendly.
Oh,
Does not work on Safari.
yes, Darren. Mac smells.
I switched to Mac around 2010 or so because I was doing a lot of my diving videos, and it's a lot better for processing videos than the Windows versions. And then they got me because I started downloading music, and then I had to get an iPhone, and then I had to get an iPad. So,
I'm
yeah,
I'm a PC guy for the most part, but I actually do like the Mac. It has really cool features.
yeah, and it's pretty darn reliable. I mean, it's a well built machine. Let me get caught up here with the chat. So it is okay. God, we got a lot of chat today. It's good to see. I missed it. What did Mud post that he had to remove?
I don't know. The Donkey movie? No.
Just call it 8 Mile instead of 2,000 Mules.
The Dick Act? What's the Dick Act, Darren? Are we gonna take bets on whether or not Doug is gonna be on time today?
I'll go with 301. Wasn't the Dick Act the one? It's a gun control law. We gotta look that up real quick. I know that's what it is. The Dick Act of 1902 is a federal law that invalidated all gun control laws in the U.S. It is also known as the Efficiency of Militia Bill, as it divides a militia into distinct and separate entities. The act authorized for the first time the creation of a separate section responsible for National Guard affairs. I think Doug's talked about that in class before. I think that's where I knew that. Yeah, if you guys, if anybody didn't get a chance last night on Glitch in the Matrix, me, Ron, and Alpha, we basically debunked a debunker, or we fact checked a fact checker on the Donkey movie. There's another thing that was out today from Epoch Times. Was Dinesh D'Souza was being interviewed, and it's about a 20-25 minute. It gives you a lot more in depth, just more information than the movie had. If anybody goes to Epoch Times video, in fact, Ron, do you have that still? Where I sent you that link earlier? I'm gonna post it in chat for these guys.
What in our chat?
Yeah, I want to share this with these guys.
Just send it to me.
I already did. I sent it to the glitch thread. But I got it right here.
Yeah, but I can't share it with the computer.
Well, you could open it up and then you click. And links are easy.
Well, if you have the
Thanks.
link, why don't you share it in the thing, and I'll.
I just did.
Okay.
Thank you, Monica. I enjoyed that episode yesterday quite a bit. I really enjoy when we get on topics where Alpha has to put his detective hat on again, and just listen to how the stuff he knows about investigative techniques. I find it fascinating. The guy's just it's awesome having him on the show for that reason more than any other.
I can't copy and paste it. I could do this though. Do you want me to share this?
I just wanted to share the link that's in there. Anybody can.
I
don't know where.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
It's 27 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. But it's really worth watching. Hey, Mud, is there as he said, there's going to be a part 2? Yeah, I've Ron, the school teacher I was talking about.
Which one?
Washington State. My friend who's a school teacher in Washington State. I've been trying for years to red pill him. I might have broken through today. He still won't watch the Donkey movie, but he will. I sent him a really good piece from Zero Hedge that really was also as a reprint of a Epoch Times article done by Hans Menke and Jeff Carlson, where they really just did a full, quick history of Spygate and did a really good job. And I sent it to him, and the guy comes back and says, "Yeah, I've been reading about this. It really makes you ask questions." So the guy left the door open. I started nudging my foot through it. We're making progress.
What was what were the questions? Or what was the overall sentiment?
What, his?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's at the point right now when it comes to the donkey, when it comes to the election issues, he's basically saying about, how could you get all 5 secretaries of state to go along with it? I had to explain to him, these guys have been rigging elections for a very long time. Although I probably shouldn't be saying that, should I? I always forget we're on YouTube.
Yeah, you got to be careful on this one.
I guess we should probably be embarrassed. We've never gotten a strike. Means we're doing
no. I don't really want to do that, because if we get a strike, then we can't do this. That's the whole point of this is we want to keep it germane.
I know. It's hard to turn that off, though.
It is. I concur.
Follow the money.
257.
25 watching. I always forget to like when I get into this room.
Oh, I'm tired.
Let's go take a nap. We'll wake you up if we need you.
I need to stayed up late last night with Alpha.
Oh, did you get your stuff done?
Mm-mm.
Did you make progress?
Yeah. But I can't use my machine.
Darren, I don't know that it's from China or not. I've got a couple other theories that may not be all China. I have other places where that money would have come from.
The cash for the mules?
Yeah, well, the cash too. I said follow the money. That's how we're going to catch these people.
Mm-hmm. Don't ask a question and not remember. I'm sorry. I miss something, Darren?
You asked about the Dick Act. I read it. Darren put some more stuff in there, and
Oh.
you just basically
My
ignored us
bad.
both.
My bad, Darren. The 3 branches of the militia. We are the civilian branch, which is the largest. Very nice.
I'll
Please,
give you guys a di-
please forgive me, Darren. Tracy barely made it on time. She beat Doug. Doug has less than a minute to get here and make it on time.
There's your Dick Act definition.
I am going to wager that he does not show up by 3 p.m.
I said 301 is my call. He's usually been hitting that one right in the nose.
He's gonna use the excuse that he hit traffic.
I'm not going to take that wager. I think you're correct.
Yeah, and there's a lot of traffic in Temecula. See
So
here, I'll share this, sir. Just so you
Who's
guys get an idea of what Doug does. This would be kind of cool. So Doug teaches his class in Fallbrook. All right, and you got to come back down, gets on the freeway here, and then this is the traffic that he goes through from here to here. Takes the 79 up, and then he's up here in French Valley. Then when he's done, and he goes over to San Juan Capistrano, he goes all the way up here to Lake Elsinore, cuts across, and takes this road over to San Juan Capistrano. So, gives you an idea of what he does.
A lot of miles.
There he is. 3
Wow.
o'clock. Wow.
I don't see him yet. He can still make 301 until I see him in the room.
Uh-oh. And to me, that sounds like
301.
Dr. Pepper.
What's up, Dougie?
Hi, how's it going?
Dr. Pepper.
I am present.
Are you accounted for, though?
Depends on who you talk up to, I guess.
What's going on there, Mr. Constitution?
A lot. And it's good. It's all good.
Did you hit traffic on the way home today?
Yeah, but actually left earlier than usual. And so
He barely
I've been
made
home
it on
doing other
time.
things. That's part of the reason why I'm right on target.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, it's good to see you.
And you, sir.
Now, that all said, how's the audience? I haven't turned on the comments here yet. Oh, there they are. Gas prices must be killing him. Tracy, you don't even know. It's bad when I own a pre-runner, a Toyota Tacoma pre-runner. That's what I drive. My wife has a one of those RAV4s. And yesterday evening, I stop at one of the local gas stations. I give the guy $100 bill, and my change after I'm done with my gas is $2. That's a pre-runner, man. It's not like I've got this huge tank or something, but anyway, so good to see you guys. Glad you're here.
They were talking in the chat about the Dick Act earlier, Doug.
I brought that up, matter of fact, last week in the Carlsbad class. That's what allegedly made, well, it didn't. I shouldn't say allegedly, it did, but I think it's wrong. It shouldn't have. Made the National Guard basically a part of the organized militia, among other things. That's its most notorious. I'm wrapping up what I was eating, so I apologize. I'm taking a couple more bites before I get started. Otherwise, those last couple bites.
I showed them on a map where you teach in Fallbrook and the traffic that you have to fight on the way home. Yeah. And then the trip that you make when you go to San Juan Capistrano.
It's funny too, because the The later it gets, the worse that gets. I did hit a lot of traffic, but it wasn't as bad because I left a little earlier. And sometimes it's worse than usual. So now understand, folks, I think Fallbrook is 20 something miles from my house, 28, 27, 25, something like that. And I got to give myself an hour to get here to be on time. And that's before the traffic gets bad. Yeah, that hill. Someone told me, I haven't looked into it to verify this. So if I'm wrong, it's my friend's fault. But somebody told me that stretch between the county line and the 215 along the 15 coming into Temecula from San Diego County is the fifth busiest stretch of road of that size in the country. And I would believe it.
A lot of traffic.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple stretches in Southern California, specifically the 15 between Escondido and Temecula. You also have the 91 between Corona and Orange County, the 101 between like Burbank area and Ventura. I mean, you don't have any alternatives but to take the freeway. That's it. There's it's not like you can hop off side roads and go back the back way. You just can't.
And the 5 to pretty much any place.
Man, the 5 to pretty much any place. Yeah.
Yeah, and the 405 pretty much any place, but especially that stretch around LA.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah. And certain times of the day, the 78 there approaching the 5 can get really rough. So and I used and the 163 can get really rough down there in San Diego. I used to drive. I live, folks, about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on traffic, drive north of San Diego. And I used to make that drive every day to go to work. When I worked for Navy Federal Credit Union, it was where the 8 and the 15 meet, like right there. And so, and I guarantee you, Warhamster knows exactly where I'm talking about. And I tell you, but pre-carpool lane and pre-fast track, that was really bad. It helped a little bit when they pull that stuff in. If you don't have that stuff, if you have that stuff, then the fast track, then it's not too bad. But anyway, so enough about traffic. Let's talk about amendments.
How about
now
the
that
fifth
everybody's in the chat room, everybody's accounted for.
Were we talking
Article
about
5.
amendments, or are we talking about Articles 5 specifically?
Article 5 is amendments.
Haha, touche.
And you know what's funny is I've been so busy, I forgot where we left off. So I actually had to go. This is the nice thing about this particular platform is I can go back and say, oh, that's the last thing I said because I watched me do it.
Actually, speaking of.
Yeah.
Ron, you're drinking out of an invisible bottle.
I know. It's kind of cool, huh? Share. Window. I'm going to scroll down. We're going to go to Article 5. I got to remember to do this because this was something that we did last week, remember?
Mm-hmm. And I suppose folks appreciated it.
Yeah.
Once it took them 5 minutes to get it set up last time. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I need to get in the habit of doing this. So
It's
we're
not
in
like
Article 5.
It's not like we don't go in here 20 minutes early, and I keep forgetting.
I know.
I'll remember to remind you.
Please do.
So it's not ready next week. It'll be my fault.
It's giving me a chance to take bites of food.
Amy, so nice to see you, Amy.
What's up, Amy?
Amy is one of my closest friends, and I love her dearly.
I'm still having nightmares about how she made her face turn into Donald Trump.
Actually, the one that gives me nightmares is the Anthony Fauci one.
Yeah, that was pretty bad too. I mean, you're sitting there looking at this very, very pretty woman, and all of a sudden you look back up, and it's Fauci staring at me, and Ah.
All right, are we ready to roll now?
Let's get it.
Last bite. You delayed everything just long enough.
Just
right.
long enough.
Doug, what were you munching on, by the way?
It's baked ziti.
All right.
We're leftovers of it anyway.
All right, let's get to it.
All right, so Article 5 in the Constitution. Now remember, let's go back now and break everything down. We have an outline here. Article 1 is all about the legislative branch. Article 2 is all about the executive branch. Article 3 is all about the judicial branch. Article 4, this is where we talk about some of the state, what's all about the states, concerning the states, about some of their things that they do, such as full faith and credit, and also how states become a state is in Article 4. The fact that a state is guaranteed a Republican form of government, I've almost made Morehamster choke on his drink there, is in Article 4. Article 6 is about federal government. So we're in between here. Article 5, it's all about amendments. And when we get to the end of this, there is a section at the end of this that opens up a door on how we reclaim our republic, restore the republic as a republic, not a democracy. We're not supposed to be a democracy. They've been turning us into one. We've been, as I stated last week, we are in transition from a republic to a democracy. Democracy then transitions to a dictatorship or an oligarchy. And so we got to get back to the original Constitution so we can be a republic. In Article 5, this is the amendment process, because when the founders wrote this document, they realized, hey, we're going to, just in case, there's going to be, got to be an ability to change it or add to it or something like that. Under the Articles of Confederation, that process was there, but it had to be a unanimous vote by the states in order for the amendment to work, for it to go into effect. And Rhode Island taught them that 100% is not a good idea. So they don't have it unanimous here. It takes a large number, a large percentage, we'll get to that, to approve an amendment, but it's not 100% anymore. So let's read Article 5. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution. That is the way the constitutional amendments have been proposed and ratified pretty much throughout the history of this country. And most people don't realize there is more to this article than that. So the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses, that means both houses, 2/3 have to be good with a proposal. And that is not just a majority, that is what some people would call a supermajority. So first of all, it's not real easy to get that approval through Congress. The proposal must have 2/3. Now, see, typically, historically, one of the factions, political parties, political belief systems, whatever you want to call them, typically does not dominate to the point where they are in control of 2/3 of one of the houses. Especially, and I don't think it's ever happened, 2/3 of both houses. Well, I'll take that back. It did happen during the war between the states. That's just because the other states were gone. But we'll get back to that. So it takes a high number that will probably require both sides to approve this proposal. But there's going to have to be persons from the other side, whatever that side may be, to say, yeah, we agree with that proposal. We'll vote for it too. So 2/3. It takes 2/3 to propose from both houses. Then it says, or. That means there's a choice here. It doesn't have to be a proposal of amendments from the Congress. There's another way to propose amendments. So Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures. Notice they don't just decide to do it themselves, there is an application process of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states. So, like Congress, it takes 2/3 to want to propose an amendment. First, it takes 2/3 just to do whatever we're getting ready to talk about here. 2/3 has to say, hey, we want to do this. And we're going to apply. We're going to put out an application saying we want to do this. So on the application of the legislatures of 2/3, notice it's 2/3 of the legislatures, not another part of the state government. It's the legislature. Governor has nothing to do with it. Judges don't have anything to do with it. Shall call a convention for proposing amendments. In other words, the Congress, because remember that's the first two words of this article. So on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, the Congress shall call a convention for proposing amendments.
I love that word shall. Shall call.
Shall is mandatory. It means it has to happen. And so Congress is commanded by the Constitution that if 2/3 or more of the states are saying we want this convention, they shall call it. It's mandatory. It's unconstitutional for them not to call it. And it's for proposing amendments. It's not for any other reason. If they're following the Constitution, is only for the purpose of proposing amendments. And then it says, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of several states or by conventions of 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress. In other words, whether it goes through Congress proposing or the states proposing through a Article 5 convention, it does not become a part of the Constitution, a ratified amendment to the Constitution, unless 3/4 of the states, either by convention or by the legislature, we'll explain that in a minute, approves it. Otherwise, it's just a dead amendment. It doesn't become a part of the Constitution. It is aborted before it can take a breath. Funny, I would tie that in here, but we'll not get too much into that. But you kind of know where I'm at on that issue, right?
Interesting choice of words.
Yeah. So we have this amendment process, and like I said, all of our amendments were proposed by Congress. All of them throughout history that have become amendments were proposed by Congress. Have the states ever tried to have a convention? Yeah, a couple times. The first time was after a case, Chisholm v. Georgia. In Chisholm v. Georgia, 1790s, I don't remember the exact year, but 1790s. I want to say 1793, something like that. But anyway, basically the federal courts told Georgia, in this case, you don't have sovereignty in this case. The framers are like, no, states always have sovereignty. Who the courts think they are. And you know what? This type of case, and we'll get into it in a sec, shouldn't even be in the federal courts. This should be a state issue. What it was is someone from another state had, South Carolina, had sued the state of Georgia over a contract regarding, I think it was clothing, saying that the state was not abiding by, what it's supposed to do. State's like, that's a state issue. We're not going to participate. We have sovereignty here. Court's got no business taking the case. We're not showing up. And the federal court says, you don't have sovereignty. You better show up or else, pretty much. So we got the states now coming together to have a convention to propose amendments saying, whoa, these types of cases shouldn't even go to the federal courts. If you've got someone from another state suing a state, or someone from another country suing a state, that case should not go beyond the state Supreme Court. So they were coming together to have a convention. The application had been called or put into place, not called. the convention had not been called yet by Congress. Congress is like, tell you what, we'll do it ourselves. They proposed the amendment themselves and then sent it out to the states for ratification. The 11th Amendment was almost proposed by Convention of States, as some people like to call it, Article 5 Convention. The other time that they tried to do something like this was in the early 1900s, and it was regarding issues regarding what was going on with the interference of banking systems with the United States. Now, here's what's fascinating. I've got this resource called the Founders Constitution, and it gives me access to letters written, congressional hearings, arguments made regarding certain issues. And in it, I have access to some of the information regarding Madison's notes. You can go to the Avalon Project and read all of Madison's notes. But it was through the Founders Constitution that I got to reading about how when it came to Article 5, originally the delegates not only allowed for the states to propose amendments, didn't even allow Congress to. There were a number of statements throughout the Constitution saying this Congress should have nothing to do with the proposing of amendments. They were more afraid of the potential tyranny of this government they might be creating than they were of the states acting tyrannically. Act of England, 1871. That's the first time I've heard that called that. Darren, we'll have that
Is
conversation.
that why?
Yeah.
Is that why the Confederate Constitution made it prohibited the Confederate government from proposing amendments?
Yeah, they were fearful. They believed that the Congress was proposing amendments that wasn't good for the states. It was good for the federal government. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why they proposed the 11th Amendment is because they were afraid the states were going to do it.
But I'm talking about in the Confederate Constitution.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
They were afraid of what the Confederate, of what the Confederate government would do.
Did you say that? And did I miss that? Because if I did, I apologize. I didn't know you were talking about the Confederate Constitution.
Well, that's what you brought up. So yeah, I was.
Okay. So I brought that up, but I didn't know if you were talking about it before I brought it up.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
What talking about before you brought it up, but you're right.
So
they understood the fears of a centralized government proposing amendments, and they were not hip with allowing Congress to have their Congress to have that kind of power, much less any Congress.
I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt you, Warham. So I'm sorry, real quick. Jabroni asks a question. Should the U.S. Constitution be supreme over state constitution as long as they continue to be a part of the voluntary union and not secede?
Yes, but that's a trick question. What is supreme is based on authorities,
which are enumerated.
So in other words, you can't say, well, because this issue is Constitution, federal government has authority over that issue, over everything that state does. Like the Bill of Rights, for example. It says Congress shall make no law, for example, the First Amendment. Just because speech is mentioned doesn't mean then that the freedom of speech, government enforcement supersedes anything that the state does regarding it. It's not a state or federal authority, So federal government, so the Constitution takes supremacy by telling the federal government that you're not allowed to have any laws regarding that. Leave it alone, it's up to the states. So if a state does something that violates that, the federal government's not supposed to get involved. They're supposed to make no law regarding that. Well, then, gosh, who's going to police the states? We're supposed to.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, going back to the never having a convention, that's one of the things that's so frustrating to me. We've got this great founding document, and one of the major articles, the gigantic tool to keep government in check, has never been used. And this is where I get into it with the John Birchers. Now, John Birch Society puts out a lot of great stuff, but they've come to the conclusion that an Article 5 convention is just too dangerous. So basically they're saying, we just can't allow. Well, no, it's not too dangerous. The founding fathers put it there for a reason. You can't say I like the Constitution, but not that part of it. It doesn't work that way. And
I understand their fears in the world we're in.
Yes,
But
yeah,
but that's
but it
like
shows
saying,
you.
oh gosh, because modern hammers are bigger than older hammers. I better not use it because I might hit my thumb.
Well, the other thing is, it's indicative how Congress did everything in their power to make sure we didn't have a convention. They decided to pass amendments on their own because the last thing they want to do is get rid of they're part of the federal government. They don't want to give the states any inkling that they have
Yeah.
power to make changes. And I'm of the opinion we should have a convention of states every 10 years.
Right.
We hired this government to do a job, and we've never had a job review. You got to be
Right,
kidding me.
exactly. Well, the state, and unfortunately, some of the states are out of control themselves. But the failsafe there is it still takes 3/4 of states to ratify any amendment, whether it's proposed by Congress or by a convention. And a lot of people are, well, they can rewrite the Constitution. Well, if we've got more than 3/4 of states, 3/4 or more ratifying a amendment that totally changes the Constitution, we've got bigger problems than runaway conventions.
Sure.
As for Darren, the reason why I was asking about, he said about
No, it was Jabroni asking about it, and he's opening up a can of worms that we really don't want to get into because that would essentially dominate the show. But he's asking because of the California gun laws. He asked this question about that
gun
because
laws.
of the
I
California
thought
laws.
state law overrides the Fed, and it depends once again on authority.
So there's an
And when it
interesting
comes to gun laws, that's a really tough, long conversation topic. I had last Saturday we had a fundraiser in Carlsbad, and if you guys are interested in helping what I do, Venmo Douglas -Gibbs -3, or you can go to my website, hit the donate button, because we fell short of our goal. Basically, is what I'm getting at. And you can buy my books at douglasvgibbs.com/store. But one of the gentlemen there, which everybody was calling Captain America, guy by the name of Luke, and and he had the red, white, and blue, head covering going and shirt going and a little cape going, and I'm like, wait a second, Captain America doesn't wear a cape, but nonetheless, they were calling him Captain America, and we got into the corporation theory discussion, which I also saw was in the chat room, which we're not also going to not get into because it will take us on too long of a rabbit trail. I've made videos about it, and you can find them at douglasvgibbs.com. I'm sorry, Douglas V. Gibbs, youtube.com/Douglas V. Gibbs, and other places. And I'm going to do one on gun rights because we talked about the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and how sheriffs are bound by that. And I said, well, not necessarily. And it's a very deep topic. But you're right on something. State law overrides the Fed. On other things, the Fed overrides state law. It depends on the authority and the language of the Constitution. It's not everything belongs to this or everything belongs to that issue. All right, get back on our.
Real quick before you go anywhere, Doug, there's a couple comments above that I don't want to lose.
Okay.
I wanted you to address those. Conservative Cowboys said, how come Convention of States action are saying that all state applications must say the same thing to count? I replied,
It doesn't say that.
I replied,
They say that.
well, they're saying that. And I replied that the Convention of States action is wrong on several issues.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes back with COS action was on live on YouTube yesterday talking and said Congress can stop the Convention of States by blocking it with a vote.
The word shall call a convention means they don't have a choice. They got to call it.
Exactly.
So it's mandatory. They can't legally. They can't stop it with a vote. They're supposed to just call it.
Do you want to touch on a couple?
They can vote on where. Now, to call a convention is to determine where and when it is. That's Congress's only role. Other than also, they may propose how it's ratified. In other words, through convention by the states or through legislature. But I don't know if this particular Congress would have enough sense to realize that's there. Here's the.
Do you want to?
Go ahead,
Doug. Do you want to touch on a couple of the other before the show is over? A couple of the other ways that the convention, the Mark Mecklenner's group, are wrong about this.
Well, yeah. First of all, they're saying that it all has to be on the same topic. That's not true. Number two, they're saying we don't have 34, we have 35 or whatever, and we got to get 38, whatever the number is. And we haven't quite gotten there, but we're working on it.
They're saying
these
we're at 19.
applications don't expire unless the application unless the application itself says it expires. In other words, if the application for a convention says this application is operative for 7 years unless there is no convention, then it becomes inoperative. Unless they do something like that, it doesn't expire. And the ones I've looked at didn't have that. So none of them that I've looked at have expired. Over 750 applications for an amendment Article 5 convention have been proposed by 49 states. 49 because Oklahoma only had one and they rescinded it. So they're the only state that doesn't have an application out there. And all of these applications from 200 years ago to 50 years ago are in play. There's enough states to call the convention. Congress hasn't because they fear the convention. But the word shall is there. It's mandatory. Constitutionally, they have no choice. And so, Congress is violating the Constitution. What a surprise. So now the question becomes by some people that if they refuse to call it, then what? Now I have some friends who have argued regarding this, and I'm in their camp on this. That's where the 9th Amendment comes into play. In the 9th Amendment, it basically says that we have all these rights, and if it's not enumerated, the federal government shall not stomp on that right either. And they're violating the 9th Amendment and the Article 5 by not calling the convention. And because the state's right to have a convention is being violated, they can call it themselves. And I believe that's an option. Now, here's the thing. Darren in the chat room says, well, we all have our opinions. That's one of the few opinions I've given you. The rest of them, this is what the founders wrote. This is what the founders said. This is what it says in the Constitution. The other stuff that we've really kind of gone into. And people say, well, this is your interpretation. No, it's Madison's interpretation, Jefferson's interpretation. If it's an opinion, I'll tell you, in my opinion. But if it's not my opinion,
I think he's talking. I think you're misunderstanding what he was saying. He was really referring to the 1871 thing because
no, I know.
1870. Yeah,
I know, and I'm getting back to that too. I've read that. I don't want to get in the conversation, but yeah, I know what he was referring to. But generally, he's saying we all have our opinions, even though he's referring specifically to that. And once again, even when it comes to Act of 1871, Congress doesn't have the authority to make the United States corporation. There's no mention of the United States or Washington, D.C. being a quote-unquote business corporation in that act. And that act was not in England. It was a United States act to make Washington, D.C. a city because it had a population that it wasn't supposed to have. And we needed to change the Constitution to allow for them to have their own government so they could take care of their own business. And that's what that act was for. So Washington, D.C. could become a city and have its own government, with a city council and that kind of thing. That's what it was about. All right, let's continue. So we've talked about how an amendment can be made. So we have this process. We have either Congress proposing amendments or the states through convention proposing amendments. Either way, it takes 2/3. In the case of Congress, one of the houses says, "Hey, we think this is a great idea for an amendment." They debate it. They put it through their committees. They vote on it. 2/3 say yeah. Then it goes to the other house. They put it through their committees. They debate it. And if 2/3 also say yes, then it goes to states for ratification. One vote under 2/3 doesn't go to the states. Then when it comes to the conventions, 2/3 of the states say, hey, we want to have a convention. We've got an application out there. Congress call it. Congress shall call it. It's mandatory. Once they call it, the states get together. They have their convention. On any one subject, 2/3 must approve it as a proposal. If in the delegation, 2/3 of the states do not approve it as a proposal, it does not go out for ratification. And that approval process is based on one vote per state. The states vote based on one vote per state. So it doesn't matter if a state has 842 or 3 delegates, that state gets one vote towards whether or not that proposal is approved by their state. The delegates cannot be holders of office either. And this is based on the examples of conventions they gave us back then. We're following their rules of other types of conventions. If it's good for this type of convention, this type of convention, this type of convention is good for that convention. They already had established the rules. They didn't sit there and list and enumerate all the rules because it was known. It was understood. Everybody knew how these things were supposed to run. And England did not run our post office.
Is there
sorry, Dan, that's wrong too.
I think somebody's got a television on or something because I hear
that too.
Yeah, I know exactly who that is. I'll be right back. I usually have it muted. I couldn't hear it because of these headphones, but I'll be back. I'll fix it 1 second.
Wow. It is the war hamster. It is the war hamster. So the war hamster, as he leaves droppings all over the room to go turn off the TV, is now back.
I heard that.
Don't slip on those droppings.
Yeah.
Now, actually,
sorry about that, everyone.
Droppings are actually pretty good because they are very informative.
My apologies.
Everybody's lost on that one. But anyway,
you guys like my invisible container?
Yeah, I saw that. My grandkids love to come in here, wrap themselves.
Makes me disappear.
They vanish.
Doug, did you recognize the shirt I'm wearing?
Yeah, I did. I do. Now I see that logo on the breast there. That's Constitution Association shirt.
There you go.
Yeah, very cool. Only got a couple of those left. I need to order more. All right. Now, so we know how to create it. We know how to ratify. Either the state legislatures agree. Now, if Congress doesn't explain how it's going to be ratified, the state decides independently. If they say it's got to be nothing but legislatures or nothing but the convention, then it has to be by that method. If it's by convention, the people in their districts that are established by Congress choose by their state legislature, choose their own delegates. So it's the voice of the people through convention to ratify. Or if it's the state legislature, then it's the legislators, which typically are supposed to be a voice of the people, especially if it's populated properly, and it's not. And we're going to get to that. So now in this Article 5, we have how to make a proposed amendment, how to ratify an amendment, 3/4 of states to ratify it. What else is in Article 5? We're only halfway through it. There's more language here. We're actually 2/3 of the way through it. Says, provided that no amendment. All right, so what's coming next are rules that these things are not allowed to be an amendment to the Constitution. So you can't make an amendment against what's next. You can't say, well, I'm going to amend that anti-amendment article. No, it says no amendment shall, mandatory, or I shouldn't say shall, it doesn't say that. For provide that no amendment, which may be made prior to the year 8,000 or 8,000. Jeez Louise, read Doug. 1,808 in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses of the 9th section of the first article. A part of that is prior to 1808, the Atlantic slave trade was allowed to continue. But as of 1808, Congress was given the authority to outlaw the Atlantic slave trade. No amendment may be made prior to that to take away that authority of Congress. And it wasn't. And Congress made that law. And on January 1st, 1808, the Atlantic slave trade was outlawed. That's Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1. Clause 4 has to do with direct taxation. They specifically want to make sure there was no direct taxation prior to that. Then it says, and there's a semicolon, so that 1808 part no longer applies, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. What does that mean?
Means the 17th Amendment is null and void.
Well, let's explain that. So what is suffrage? Suffrage is representation. So no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal representation in the Senate. And someone says, well, it wasn't with the 17th Amendment. There's still two. Well, the equal has not changed, but the representation has. And here's how I know this. It says that no state without its consent, it being a single entity. Then I go to the 10th Amendment, and I read, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So when the Constitution says the states, it means something other than the people of the states, because it says or to the people. It's separating who the people are and the states are. So when the Constitution says states in that clause, it does not mean the voting public. It means something else. And the other thing, if you're talking about the state, it could only mean would be the government apparatus, the state legislature, and so on and so forth. Then we go to Article 3, just to get a second opinion. In Article 3, Section 1, at the very end of the very first paragraph, the very end of that, in brackets, it says, and between a state or the citizens thereof, and foreign states, citizens or subjects. Once again, the state and the citizens are being separated. When the Constitution says state, it means the government apparatus or the state legislature, a lot of people believe, but it means the government apparatus, which includes the state legislature, or to the citizens. The citizens are not a part of that definition of the state. It's a separate entity. So we have the state and we have the citizens of the state, or the state and the people. So if the Constitution says the state, it does not mean the voters. Now, if we understand that, now let's reread that clause in Article 5. And that no state says nothing about the voters. No state. So it means the state legislature and its apparatus, in this case, the state legislature only, without its consent shall not be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. Okay, without its consent. What is its consent? That would be state ratification. So basically what it's saying is if ever there was an amendment proposed that a state was not good with, did not ratify, that takes away the state legislature's ability to appoint senators to the United States Senate, that state does not lose that. They cannot lose that ability without their consent. They are allowed to continue to do it the old way, even if an amendment goes in place, if they don't give their consent. Now, there were 9 states that never ratified the amendment, 17th Amendment. 17th Amendment, for those of you who are not sure what we're talking about, once again, is before the 17th Amendment, the state legislatures appointed their U.S. senators. Both houses, they would make their agreement. They would vote on someone. Then they would appoint that person to the Senate. It changed it to the people voting in their senators based on districts separated by the population. Well, no, I'll take that
basically,
back.
the Senate
popular vote of a state. So the popular. Hang on a second. Let me get my thought before I lose it. So the popular state vote. So who usually wins in a popular vote fight? The bigger population, right? The centers, the cities. This was a way to keep the cities from having a say. The heavy population from having a say, to keep the Senate in the hands of the rural areas, because they're appointing. Okay, now, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, essentially what the 17th Amendment did was it made senators an over glorified House of Representatives, but
Yeah.
thus removing the state government from the legislative process for the specific purpose, because it was a whole lot easier to manipulate elections on where the people voted, as opposed to relying on the state governments and putting in the man that they needed to have for passing things such as, oh, I don't know, the Federal Reserve Act.
Yeah. Let me yeah. Well, let me talk about why they appointed the state legislatures appointed senators rather than them being voted in democratically. So I don't think most people understands why that's important. When you
The way I
have
like to,
when you have a legislative body, historically has been shown that if you have a bicameral legislative body with two houses that are different from each other, you're going to have less tyranny. If there's only a single house, or if both houses populate their houses by the same means, tyranny is more likely. Because
what's the point of having separate houses if they're determined the exact same way?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
The way I like to sum this one up is, and I think I probably got this from you originally, Doug, but I've been using the argument a long time.
Okay.
Is originally, the people had the representation by the Congress, by the House. The states had the represented by the Senate, and the federal government had its representation in the executive branch. And now, those are the original checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't have those checks and balances. It's nothing but, it's two political parties, which are basically part of one political cartel.
And it goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than that too, because the delegates who are writing this Constitution, while they are a part of we the people, and they are representing us too, they are more specifically representatives of their states. They're delegates from each state. Hamilton represented New York. Franklin represented Pennsylvania. James Wilson represented Pennsylvania. Madison represented Virginia, and so on. And so it was really the states had come together knowing they needed a federal government to handle the stuff that they couldn't themselves handle. For example, if you're going to negotiate a treaty with another country, what do? Send a representative from each of the states to negotiate that? No, you need a single entity representing the whole to do so. So that authority was given to the president of this federal government. But they didn't trust the president to do the work that they're giving him on his own. They decided they wanted to make sure they had a voice in the Senate so that when he comes back with that negotiated treaty that he signed, they still have to approve it through their representation in the Senate. So what it was is this is a way for the states to have oversight over the federal government that they are creating. It's like, and getting back to what you were saying earlier, Warhamster, the legislative process, that is the ability, the power to make law, create law, whichever you want to call it, modify law, and repeal or strike down law. That belongs to Congress. If you've got the situation we have right now, only the representation of the people are involved in that process. But originally, you had the House of Representatives, voice of the people, because they voted in those people. The Senate, House of States, because they appointed those senators, and the voice of the executive branch through the vice president, who is president of the Senate. So you have three voices now involved in that lawmaking process. Suddenly, it's not just one group making all the laws. I mean, it's like, would you want your city council to be all five people, let's say, from the same corporation sitting on the dais, making all the rules? No, you want that spread out. You want this person representing maybe, the farmers out there in the far end of town, and this guy representing the business district, and where the small town owners are, the small business owners are. And, you want those different voices, right? That's what they're doing here. They're saying, okay, let's give the people the House, the states, the Senate, and the executive branch, the vice president, who is the president of the Senate, who's supposed to be active at every session, wielding the gavel, saying, hey, here's what the executive branch thinks. So you got these three voices coming together, representing three parts of the system. That makes all the sense in the world, does it not? And that's what they did. 17th Amendment took away the state's ability to appoint their representation, to have that oversight over that process, in addition to other things. And, Ron and I have a book, in fact, that talks about, in one section of it, they wanted this because it would be more easy to get their people in office that way.
Yep. FDR, my exploited father-in-law.
Yep. My exploited father-in-law by Curtis B. Dahl. Good
Doug,
book. Yes.
Raging Smirk. I'm sorry, who is it? I lost it. Conservative Cowboy says the 16th Amendment was never lawfully ratified.
It wasn't at first, and it was deemed ratified before it was lawfully ratified. Later on, other states did ratify it, and it became allegedly.
Yeah, but did they really ratify it, or was it just deemed? Was it just like they just said?
Well, in the beginning, it was deemed ratified. It wasn't properly ratified in the beginning. Two of the states had not followed or three of the states or two of the states. I think it's two of the states had broken their own ratification rules. Therefore, their ratification votes did not count. But eventually, other states later did add their ratification votes down the road. So it did eventually become ratified. Now, that said, that's another way of kicking the states out of having oversight over the federal government. Before the 16th Amendment, the states paid the tax, not the people. There was no direct tax on you. It was to the states, and the states, before they paid that budget for the federal government, they reviewed it. And if they didn't like it, they would refuse to pay it.
I have questions on whether or not the states would have
had it not been deemed ratified.
Yeah.
Well, the other part about that is, especially in the case of the 17th, well, the 16th as well, is they were sold or marketed to the states fraudulently. They were misrepresented what they were really trying to do.
Right.
And fraud vitiates everything. Any contract entered into under fraudulent circumstances is null and void. So,
well, I don't see how the states would have ratified the 17th Amendment, essentially removing their say at the federal level.
Remember, it was the progressive era. So first of all, most of them were progressives. Number two, the ones that weren't were told, you ratify this, you'll never be on a committee again. You'll never get reelected again. Things like that. There was things going on.
And there's enough corruption in the states that the newspapers at the time were pointing out, and the people were kind of sick of it. And so they said, okay, we passed the 17th Amendment. We'll get rid of all the state house corruption on how senators get picked.
Yeah, and it didn't get rid of the corruption, just added the corruption and moved it somewhere else and made it worse.
They centralized the corruption.
Yeah,
that's really
exactly.
That's really what this power grab has been. You're always going to have corruption when you have government elections. It's just a fact. And what they've done with this country is that they've created the political cartel. They have centralized it. It's so much easier when you only have to bribe allegedly two political parties.
Right.
And that's what they did. If you have to bribe 50 different state houses, it's a lot more work and a lot harder to do. But
a lot more expensive.
Yep. So decentralization is one of our keys to getting this right.
And that's a very good observation. And that goes back to something we've talked about before, is localism too. Mm-hmm. Decentralization. Don't let a central government control everything. You let the parts of government that's closest to that thing take care of that thing, whatever it may be. So I want the federal government to handle war. I want my state government to handle state infrastructure. I want my city government to handle whether or not I have a stop sign at the end of my street, and so on and so forth. Let's put the authorities where the natural order of things lie, where it should be their job and so not somebody else's. And that's what goes back to our very beginning of this class today, where we're talking about it depends on what the authorities are. When we're talking about superseding and all that, it all depends on authorities and where authorities should lie. Because understand, we realize we have to have government. It's important to have rules and regulations and laws because we want to be an orderly society. So speaking of that stop sign at the end of the street, no stop sign, gets a little confusing. People run into each other. So to make it us going through that intersection more orderly fashion. Stop signs put in, and we know the rules regarding those stop signs, and we give our consent that we'll follow those rules. It's a necessary law. Government's supposed to make necessary laws. When they go beyond making necessary laws, when they start making, passing laws that are not absolutely necessary and it's outside their jurisdiction, their authority, then that's when problems start to pop up. And it all comes back to, you're right, decentralization. We're trying to, the founders were trying to find balance. And a large part of that balance was decentralization and distributing the powers to where they are supposed to be distributed, and decentralizing those authorities from that one government out to those different parts, depending on what they were. And it seems complex, but it's actually pretty simple once you get it.
I'm just pondering. The founding fathers gave us this wonderful tool for the specific purpose of reining in an out of control government, and somehow we've never managed to use it in 230 some years. I hope to be alive to see an actual Article 5 convention.
Well, it's psyops. They've got even people on our own side telling us, "Oh, it's too dangerous."
Yeah,
and really, I think that's kind of like a psyop. Just like I think this thing about demonizing the term citizen is really a psyop. The description being given to citizen by certain groups is the description for a subject. I'm not a subject. I'm a citizen. A subject serves the government. When you're a citizen, the government serves you. They're supposed to be different. Yeah, but they're doing this. I know they're doing that. It's because they're bad guys. That's what bad guys do. It's like in that movie with Suicide Squad. And she's they're like stealing something out of the window. Something. We're bad guys. That's what we do. Harley Quinn. That's what they do. They're bad guys. Of course they deceive. Of course they ignore the Constitution. Of course they are tyrannical. Of course they're corrupt. That's what they do. And sitting here complaining. But the paper says they're not supposed to do that. Well, it doesn't stop them because it's a piece of paper. Constitution's only ink and paper. If we don't fight for it, we don't enforce it. We the people, our states, so on and so forth.
And if anybody has any questions about whether an Article 5 convention would be a good idea or not, just know that George Soros has spent millions of dollars putting out propaganda against it. So,
yeah,
obviously, it's afraid.
Now, let me wrap this up with, what do we do about it, Doug? So, this is something I was talking about earlier. So, it's 9 states that never ratified it, 17th Amendment. 2 of the states weren't states when it was proposed, Alaska and Hawaii. By the time they became states, it had been ratified. Therefore, there was no need for their vote, and they chose not to. There were some states that did add their vote later, even after it was ratified, to show their agreement or whatever with it. Then there were 6 states in the South that never ratified it: Virginia, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and Mississippi. I've got the list down now in my head. And then there's 1 state that said, "Oh, hell no. We not only are not ratifying this thing, we are rejecting it. We're against it to the utmost." That was Utah. So Utah never ratified it, and they even rejected it, said, "Hell no." Now we go back to that language. No state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. Utah was forced to change their way to do it from appointing these senators to having them voted in by the popular vote. Their suffrage has been deprived of them without their consent. So, if ever there was a state that has the authority to say, "You know what? Screw the 17th Amendment. We're going back to the old way of doing it," it's them. But it gets better. Not only did they never give their consent, I'm not even sure it was legally ratified or proposed, in the first place. Let's go to Article 1, Section 5, I believe, or 4 or 5. Hang on a sec. Section 4. Article 1, Section 4. This is a section that tells the states that it's their authority to handle elections of senators and representatives. That's the alarm clock, the 2-minute warning, so I better hurry. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. Okay, we know that much. Then it says, but the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulation. Okay, so Congress can, if they think the states are out of whack on their rules regarding elections, can make changes. Then it says, except as to the places of choosing senators. Congress shall not make or alter the regulations regarding the place in choosing the senators, in other words. But what did they do with that proposal? They proposed to change the places of choosing senators. They violated that by proposing it in the first place. So first of all, it was illegally proposed, and then once it was ratified, states that did not ratify it, who shall not lose their equal suffrage without their consent, were forced to comply with it. Boy, what an illegal mess we got here. Utah has every right to say, you know what? We're out of this bozo circus. We're not going to have our senators voted in. I know it's going to break their heart to yank someone like Mitt Romney and Mike Lee to, so they can do it the right way. I'm sure there'll be a lot of tears. Well, probably Mitt Romney's and Mike Lee's tears. And then yank those guys and then appoint who they want as the legislature. And just start doing it. Don't ask for permission. Don't litigate. Just do it. I hate sounding like Nike, but Nike was right on that one. Just do it. Now, Doug, there'll be lots of lawsuits. Yeah. Mitt Romney probably sue. The federal government probably sue. Bring it on. Let's get this thing out into the public arena so people know about this garbage. Let's make this a big lawsuit so that everybody's going, whoa, the federal government's going after Utah. I got to watch this fight, run to the ring, see what's going on. Holy cow. That big guy that's fighting this fight, he's cheating. We want the public to know this is a way to do it. Now, that said, I'm in touch with a legislator from the Utah legislature. And when I proposed to him what I would like to do, his exact words, him, not me, this is him, that's right up my alley. So I'll keep you posted as that proceeds. And that's another thing, funding's always needed for it. Help pay for that trip. DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. Hit the donate button. But if you like Venmo, Douglas-Gibbs-3 is to Venmo me. I'm going to put the QR code on my website eventually too, but right now I don't have it there. So there are other ways to send money because we got to fund these things. We got to do these things. These are a part of what it takes to take back our republic, to restore our republic. Because I don't just teach these Constitution classes because I want you to know. I want you to take that and be active with it. I want active things happening. I'm doing active things. I want you to do active things. You don't know what to do? No problem. Help me do the active things. Help fund trips to Utah or things like that. All right. That all said, as always, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to be with you for this wonderful hour.
Conservative Cowboy, you're going to have to ask that question next week.
Yeah,
that's too long.
That's one of the latest things been bouncing around, and I think it's all Warhamster's fault that one is out there about Hawaii.
So Doug, I actually had a thought that maybe what we should do is bring you onto the Untold History channel, and then we could kind of dive into a few things that we can't really dive into from a constitutional. Well, we can expand on things from a constitutional perspective,
like the corporation theory and things like that.
Right. So
I'd be game for that.
Yep. So anyway, on that note, we're gonna let Doug go because he has to get to San Juan Capistrano, and time is.
I go over the Ortega, man. I tell you, that's a hairy drive.
It is a single lane each way with no passing, and if you get stuck behind a very slow, scared driver, which there's plenty of, it takes you forever.
Plus, they're doing work on that roadway, which also makes it fun. But it's still 15 to 20 minutes faster than going all the way around.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So yeah, it takes about an hour and 15 minutes usually from my house to get there, and its class starts at 6, so I better get on the road. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs, and thank you,
Pleasure.
Amy, and everybody in the chat. Appreciate
And
your...
our seven new people here today. I hope you guys come back next week, and good to see all of our regulars.
Very good.
We got
Very
44 people watching.
Very cool. Very cool.
I think I saw 50 in the we got to the 50s at some point. So
Very
All right,
good.
we have a good group here in this, and you know what? You guys are my biggest class compared to the live ones. You know, now you're still not big enough to fight with the one I do on KPRZ. I have about 30,000 listeners on that one. So you guys still have a way to go.
yeah,
but you know, hey, anything's possible.
The difference between this and your other live classes is this one's got Ron Partain. That's why there's more people here.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Untold history.
All right, gentlemen. We'll see you next week. Thank you for having me on. And
thanks, Mr. Gibbs.
Love
Good to
having
see you as always, and we will chat soon.
All right, we'll do.
All right, guys. Bye.
See you, Doug.